And out, Bubbadub has been a real playmaker for compLexity. Going down in lane, they can usually get a few, if not just the lane aggression back. I was going to say kills, but teams really aren't letting compLexity get any kills in any of their games.
I wonder with this ban phase, because they've obviously banned out Ziggs. When EG play compLexity, they pick Ziggs away. But they also had a first-time ban in the North American LCS this split, which was Jace.
Right.
Because Prolly had been practicing so much of it. I wonder, actually, if compLexity would just break out the Jace in this game and try and surprise Dignitas.
compLexity is known to actually do those sorts of things, Jap. Probably bringing out the Annie whenever he wants to, knows his matchups. The Braum's going to be quickly locked in for KiWiKiD after a quick stint on Zyra for his past few games. He will go back.
This was one of the rare games when Thresh was actually banned. It basically tunnels Bubbadub into MOrgana to play against Braum as far as the supports that can compete with him. And it also means that if Dignitas gets the 2v0 or 2v1, it's actually much better for them because Braum isn't the strongest very early on in 2v2s.
Yeah, very interesting. Slow going right now for compLexity.
They did this yesterday too.
Yep.
After the pick ban phase, it seemed like they were a little surprised by the way the bans and picks went down and then had to hesitate for their first picks.
Wow. Locking in Kassadin, completely blind on this one. They want it first and they want it for Prolly.
Damn. There's an outside chance we could see the top lane Kassadin. I've been seeing a lot more of it in solo queue.
All right.
Kind of the same build Voyboy did when he was in the mid lane, heavy armor, and then trying to transition out of there. Not necessarily likely. It's probably a mid lane Kassadin, but it does. Kassadin is becoming somewhat of a flex pick.
It warrants the thought. We'll see what Crumbzz and Shiphtur have with that idea in mind, because it's running through our minds. It's obviously an inkling there, but maybe they won't grab hold either. A quick Elise pickup coming in for Crumbzz gives him some safe play as well as execution and initiating fights. Shiphtur, he can really round out whatever he wants now, but he's always been a waiter to see what the rest of the team is.
Yeah, the Elise Lucian VIP junglers that we've been seeing so much means Dignitas are the only ones allowed in the club right now, and the question will become where Kez defaults back to. His best games were by far on Lucian. He had a very underwhelming Nocturne game, which is actually something Crumbzz has been really liking.
Yeah.
So
saw a little bit
isn't
of
bad
jargon
against
yesterday
Elise because he can block the stun in duels.
That's true. And there's not many, well, I guess there's a few things you'd have in that fight. Flame Breath, Braum's Q, Winter's Bite can break that shield.
There's a lot of stuff that can mess up Nocturne still, that's for sure.
Waiting on the pick. They did get Lucian, so compLexity keeps themselves in the 80 carry club. They'll be able to lock that down for RobertxLEE. And the Eve is going to come back into play for Kaz. It's been a few weeks since anybody has really tried their hand on Eve.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting choice, actually. I like it more in isolation against Dignitas, because Dignitas definitely builds more green wards, or buys more green wards than other teams, and Eve gets to be immune to those guys. PewDiePie was messing with us a little bit. He'll be picking an 80 carry. Probably Jinx or Twitch. Bloop. There we go.
Jinx has really been making a resurgence
with Twitch
as well.
on the board. He did this as well yesterday.
PewDiePie's stats last year were different as well. He went with tons of kills on Jinx and then played like almost 4 or 5 straight games of Lucian with almost 0 wins. And then back to Jinx and he got 2 wins in a row on it. So I think he's just saying, I'll go back to the Jinx this time. Make everything look like a turret as usual.
Shiphtur's Orianna as well was really on point yesterday. Probably him and PewDiePie, despite the chaos of the game, were both deathless in that one.
It
was actually a really funny death distribution for Dignitas. Their damage dealers, Zion, Shiphtur, and PewDiePie, never died. And then Crumbzz and KiWiKiD died a combined 10 times. So it's very much a, hey, look at us in the front line. We are going to be the guys who take damage, and the back line just doing their damage duties. Almost as clean of a distribution as you could think of.
And Bubbadub, we talked about the MOrgana a little bit earlier. We'll be locking that in. Good protection for Kaz. Gonna have to make sure he doesn't get locked up by Crumbzz coming down to the bottom lane. We haven't really seen too many standard lane matchups, and especially with the Jinx, I don't know if we'll get it this time either.
Yeah, Dignitas, maybe they're just not going to trade. Maybe we get to see KiWiKiD in the mid lane this time, and Shiphtur on support Braum. They actually have to trade before 20 seconds, surprisingly enough. And no one's mouse is on keyboard. It is there. They traded. They traded 30 seconds. Nothing to see here. But really, the composition from compLexity feels very low damage and high control. So it's the Westrice on the Renekton and the Kassadin in the mid lane for some roaming. If they don't jump out into a very big lead in this one, I feel like Dignitas will just straight out outscale.
All right, we'll get touched on the lanes right in the beginning of the game. Right now, it's time to check how you're calling this showdown. According to LOLesports.com, you're tipping this in Dig's favor with a bit of 91% of the vote towards compLexity on this. compLexity bringing out the KES team. We'll see if they can group it back up.
I feel like those 90% votes actually end up going the other way more often than you would expect them for 90% vote. You can also vote on Twitter. Send the hashtag DigWin or compLexityWin to @LOLesports. You COL win.
Now that everybody's getting awake and ready to vote, we'll see that change as the game goes on.
Saw the challenge games before as well.
Yeah, exactly. People are just getting their popcorn ready, getting back from the bathroom. It's game time. You know what it is. So waiting to get into this one. First one of day 2 here. We had some crazy games yesterday. We also had some kind of just all-out stomps yesterday. So teams are trying to regroup from that. If they got their win, obviously coming out very strong here. But this is a game compLexity needs to win. We've seen compLexity beat top teams in the league, and this is a possibility here.
A 2-9 team coming into this one. Obviously, expectations weren't incredibly high for compLexity. And no one will really blame them if they lose this game to Dignitas, but that's not the mindset they need to be in if they want to remain a LCS team. Sitting in 8th place, if they finish the season like this, would automatically put them back in the promotion tournament. Place where they just came from this last split. They had that incredibly thrilling series against Coast, who, by the way, Shiphtur and ZionSpartan were a part of that team. They landed all right.
Right. Seems to have worked out pretty well, especially for Crumbzz, who we're looking at right now. Has a pink ward early. It really makes me think, in his positioning, that they're almost going to do the same thing Dig did to Cloud9 and start vision completely on that area. They feel like with a pink ward early, they can cover that. Yeah,
this is a invade early on that we saw a little bit less of yesterday.
That's right, yeah.
Not many 5-man invades. The sweep early on from KES shows you his propensity for vision control, but KiWiKiD also says he can 1v5 early game on Braum, so they're going to try and get a catch if they could, but he would have to land another Q while they collapsed. And compLexity, unlike TSM, invaded with all 5. Yesterday, TSM invaded that spot, if you flip the map, with only 4 people, which let Dignitas crush them. This time, they just get the deep ward and get out of there.
See what they decide to do. It looks like it's just for the vision. And Crumbzz is making his way towards the top side. Wards have already been placed for Dig as well, so they're not too scared in movement, but they also are setting themselves up right on a ward, hatching that one.
Jeez. The ward, they should see that ward die, and then they move out. However, I think they were spotted by the ward before they made the brush, so compLexity should still be fearful, which is why they're deserting.
Good play there. 4 squad moving in for Dig.
Dignitas just played this level 1 amazingly. Notice how they did a 3-man invade without their jungler. And Crumbzz is soloing his own buff. And since KES is starting on the absolute middle quadrant of the map, if Crumbzz sweeps all the way down to his red, it's a perfect 3-buff start for Dignitas.
Able to sweep out some of those wards as well, so it's clear on Crumbz's side for free movement in the jungle. He's going to get both. They've got a 3-buff start on this one. And you're going to see KES now. He's going to be going to look for that blue buff.
Yeah, that was really clean by Dignitas. And it's hard to believe that this would be a team that doesn't think of level 1s, right? They claim that they are not doing that, but that was an incredibly clean response to a 5-man invade, something that North American teams have not really done this split. KES is left without blue buff, and that's pretty big for Eve. Zion does need to be wary of this gank, though.
You can see that it's kind of forcing KES now to push his hand into a gank. They have great positioning. There's his blue buff. Oh, it's so close. He wants it, and he's going to get his blue buff. Oh, no. What a backfire.
Well, the best laid plans of mice and men.
Oh, man.
That was an unfortunate thing for Zion. And that's the thing about the E pick, right? You can put your wards in the river, but they're not going to inform you whatsoever unless it's a pink or unless it's right next to a buff that KES is actually going to be attacking to reveal him. A really, I'd say, lucky gank right there by KES.
Oh, yeah.
Zion needed to be turtling that up a lot more, knowing that Kez without his buffs and without blue needs to gank, and that was his natural progression.
Feeling a little too strong. A flash pushed out. Good hold on Crumbzz. Waiting for the cocoon. They go ahead, and now they have a bit more pressure on Prolly in the mid lane. Kez, doing great work for himself. Keep an eye on him in this game.
Yeah.
Good push in the bottom lane by compLexity.
Before?
I don't believe so.
He did. He played it against LMQ. Right. Actually had a pretty good game, if we remember. That game was a close one. So
one of his first 2 with compLexity, so he definitely feels comfortable on it. Oh, man.
Knowing the flash is down.
The red buff is there as well. They're going to be able to stick on him like glue for this one, but there's not enough damage to finish up the kill. Still, backed out of lane. He already used teleport. It's going to be a long walk.
And the lane is positioned such that Westrice doesn't have to shove it, and he can begin some farm denial. So this will be a test for Westrice. You know, he's been granted a pretty big edge in this lane, experience-wise. And we have the isolated lane matchups. So Westrice is a guy who's actually been struggling a lot in 1v1 matchups. And he needs to capitalize on this one and actually destroy his lane.
So we'll see what this pressure for Dig does. We saw a little bit the Kez was coming mid lane. Prolly, or Shiphtur rather, has his flash up, but will Shiphtur feel like he needs to start carrying the game? They still have a lot of time to work with. Just have to make sure compLexity doesn't get that much more ahead in this early game. We've seen RobertxLEE with a triple kill completely carry a game against Cloud9. So little steps for compLexity in the early game are actually quite big.
Yeah, the standard laning did not work out for Dignitas because of the early gank from Kez. Buff control worked great, and now they're in trouble.
Just on the outside, very nice hit on the KiWiKiD. compLexity gaining pressure in the bot lane too.
That could have been an all-in from compLexity, but they were fearful of the Braum stun because KiWiKiD had landed that Winter's Bite right on to RobertxLEE. 4 hits would have stunned him. So he decided against the all-in, but it will force KiWiKiD back to base, which means this Lucian lane, as we said, with the Braum early on in the laning phase, typically isn't incredibly strong. Lucian also a stronger laner than Jinx.
Yeah.
And compLexity is playing to the advantage of their champions, right? Lucian should beat Jinx in lane. Renekton should beat Shyvana in lane. But that's not something compLexity has necessarily been doing yet this split.
It's really working out well for him. Bubbadub throwing down in the face of KiWiKiD, just showing no fear. We get RobertxLEE backing on this. We saw great harass with those piercing lights in lane that KiWiKiD just could not put up with. They'll return to lane with about the same, but we've been seeing KiWiKiD picking up that early pink ward as well. So they may be trying to gather something and get Crumbzz down there quite soon.
This is a really curious game. Kez's early game pressure on Eve has been really impressive. Already being level 5. And I do just want to keep going back to this laning situation for compLexity because it has typically been actually their greatest struggle as a team. They picked very strong laners this game. I think to bypass some of the main issues they had yesterday against EG. When they got straight up 2v2'd in the bottom lane by Krepo and Altec, the game was over. Twitch just destroyed them after that. So they have picked incredibly powerful laning champions right here, and all of them are actually winning their lane. A lot of people will say Kassadin is not a strong laner because they're still remembering the old pre-rework Kassadin. With the instant magic shield, Kassadin actually should beat a lot of the conventional mids in that straight-up matchup, especially now that he's level 6.
Trading well with Shiphtur in lane, both of them, and actually putting Shiphtur down at CS, making it hard. Shiphtur's been pushing Prolly into the turret, so he's keeping that up. And also going for Doran, so he's trying to keep himself safe, knowing Shiphtur will go hard. We'll see if Prolly can keep it up. We know he is the one for compLexity to help carry the game. But like you said, with everybody starting strong this time, we'll see if compLexity can kind of put the strength they have towards late games now. A little bit of harass.
You annoying kid right there. That's really going to hurt Prolly, actually, because at this point, Shiphtur has his blue buff immediately. Shiphtur went to lane after blue buff, which means he actually gets more use of that blue buff immediately. Prolly gets blue and then goes back to base. But he's got teleport, so actually...
Bam.
He's back.
Very nicely done and back to lane. Not seeing too much from Kez since his first few ganks. Westrice has had a great lead and is holding that 59-38 in the top lane. Starting to go for a Tiamat for himself with his early lead. Back to the bottom, we see RobertxLEE is 61-54. KiWiKiD is sticking with, but you can see how they can't even trade damage to compLexity right now. It's all about farming. I'm just happy with that at this point.
We do know that Dignitas has a better late game team competition, unless Prolly got absolutely massive, in which case the Kassadin might be able to do a lot of work. But really, Dignitas, this feels early on like another game where maybe they just underestimated complexity a little bit.
Yeah.
They felt so confident after that TSM one yesterday, and then they think, yeah, these guys are 2-9. What's really going to happen? Maybe they're just going to do a standard game plan. The early game triple buff start was a nice reaction to what complexity did, but then was easily recovered by Kez because Zion got greedy trading early on Shyvana against Renekton when he didn't need to.
Right.
And now they're kind of on their back foot since Evelyn has so much control and because complexity has stronger laners.
Well, hopefully Dig can remember that late game team. A lot of teams kind of just go in and they're so far behind they need to push themselves into situations that don't allow you to get the late game and everything starts to domino on top of you. Hopefully Dignitas realizes that some of the early dragons, if ults weren't up, would be safe. KiWiKiD, very nice hit up coming from the Glacial Fisher.
Whoa.
They're going to be safe on this one though.
Except for KiWiKiD,
yeah, that was different on the Soul Shackle. Before he gets locked up, he tried to really deny RobertxLEE's damage, and Crumbzz is going to have to be an onlooker for this one.
Yeah, knowing that KiWiKiD's flash is down though, if Eve gets the little bit on him, it could be a great counter game.
Kez is there the per time, there it is! Ardent Blaze coming out from RobertxLEE. He finalizes the shot onto KiWiKiD. Crumbzz, that is not how you get over the wall on that one, buddy. He is going to go down to the hands of Kez. Very nice play. Complexity coming up big around the map.
So not only is Dig a step slow arriving to ganks, they're a click off when they're trying to pull off their spells right now. This could be a Dignitas team on tilt against a complexity team who mentally they think had no chance against them. So once they start losing, it just hurts even more.
This is already a better game than the last time these two teams faced, Jack. Complexity only got 3 kills in that game. Right now they have the only 4 in this one and a 4,000 gold lead.
Yeah, and 4,000 gold leads aren't easy to come back from. This was an example of the Braum stun creating initiation. I don't really know what KiWiKiD was thinking here. He didn't have the finishing damage and all of his spells were on cooldown, so that was a straight up misplay at that point because KiWiKiD could not come in range to follow up that damage, and a Morgana ult was sitting on both of them. Then the counter gank comes. KiWiKiD stuck around without a flash because Crumbzz was telling him to, but they completely forgot about the Evelyn. Then this flash was just a unfortunate event right there. Kez flashed again to close the distance and guarantee the kill.
Kez everywhere he needs to be right now. 2-0-1 and 2-0-0 the kill score we're looking at for Complexity. The teleport back to top lane as well for Westrice. He still holds that 30 CS lead, and it looks like every timing he needs has been hitting perfectly in his lane. Didn't miss any of the CS, and ZionSpartan even gives a second thought to just the presence of Westrice when he goes to place a ward. Nobody's really been up there since the beginning, though. It seems like Kez was all right with the 2 hits on ZionSpartan. They said we took a bit of that solo lane carry away, and we'll be able to focus on the other lanes. And he's done a great job, too. Success in the bottom. Yeah, they got success on Flash and Shiphtur.
And in the bottom lane, KiWiKiD actually did a very interesting thing. In order to hit his BF sword, he sold his Doran's Blade. So he is a squishier target down there. Doran's Blade doesn't necessarily scale great into the end game, but the health already in a lane they were losing will be a little bit dangerous if they get into another 3v3, kind of like this.
That flash is down from last time. That's going to be a spider up, a spider down, and it looks like he is going to be out of the game for now. KiWiKiD tries to get himself to safety. They really weren't able to even put that much damage onto Complexity. KiWiKiD caught out a little bit there, and you're starting to get the Kassadin going. This is not looking good for Dig.
This is exactly what Complexity needed to do to win this game. They picked such a strong early game team, and they are capitalizing on every last bit of it right now. Look at this lead Westrice has held in the top lane. We haven't really looked back here since the early games because there's been so much else going on. But Westrice is really doing work up there against ZionSpartan, taking his advantage and actually making it count.
He's been doing what he can on a lot of champions. Played Lulu the last time, did not work out for him, so back to the wheelhouse, and he is putting up some numbers in the CS. Really, somebody that's been focused by a lot of teams. They'll go for Westrice early in the game, know they can take him out. He's teleported to turret early, rather, sometimes, and teams take that into consideration. This time he's fixed all of those little errors, and it's really paying off for the rest of the team across the map.
Great job by Complexity. This is a really, really big lead that you do not expect when you see a matchup of the first place team versus the last place team in the North American LCS, but that's what can happen when Complexity picks such an early game team and Dignitas plays so sloppily in the early game. They can't just rely on their skill to win this one. They needed to have better communication, and honestly, probably a better early game plan to deal with this. This is almost a classic underestimation of compLexity, but compLexity is showing up.
I keep considering what would have happened if ZionSpartan, did not get hit up for that blue buff in the early part of the game. Good aggression in the bot here. Would Dignitas have had a much more solid game? How far behind would KeZ be? But he made the right moves.
Exactly. You consider what happened when they got that blue buff back. It caught KeZ back up in experience, and it gave Westrice a lead up there so KeZ could then ignore it. And it also, in a sense, put Crumbzz a little bit behind, because when you do those sneaky around the side invades and getting no pulls and stuff in the early game, you put yourself at a bit of a sacrifice, which normally is acceptable because the other jungler is even farther behind. But it turned out the other jungler just got put farther ahead of him. And as a result, if we look at the jungle items, for instance, KeZ's Lizard Elder is well stacked as far as gold generation so far that he's been able to get off of it, and that's very important.
compLexity is definitely a team to be reckoned with. One of their other wins that they have is against Cloud9. Like we said at the beginning here, this is definitely a team that they can beat. KeZ getting a bit found out there, and very good at just not tunneling for the fact that they had an engage. He backed off. compLexity lives to fight another day.
So 6,500 gold and 2 turrets to 0. And still only 27% of the Twitter vote. Come on, guys. compLexity is doing fantastic. They've already had a big upset this year when they took down Cloud9.
Yeah, right. And Cloud9 and Crumbzz so far in that lane column. Shiphtur, haven't really seen too many plays from him this game. The mid has not been able to roam. I shouldn't say that. Prolly did. Shiphtur's kind of been alone and staying there. He did catch back up on CS, but he's not an impactful amount of items and ready to fight with the rest of the team. A minute on Dragon. They have crowd control and teleport up for that fight on the side of Dignitas. It might be what they need, but compLexity would have to walk into that in just a silly manner and throw it away.
I mean, top lane has a 2-level advantage.
Right.
Westrice over ZionSpartan. They can both teleport down to meet each other, and then Renekton would be much stronger because of the second rank in his ultimate. And then every other person on compLexity is also much stronger. They're just looking for catch after catch, and Dignitas is so much on their back foot, it's not even funny. Look at where the wards are.
Yeah, I was going to say,
compLexity right
no
now.
blue.
Everywhere Crumbzz goes is either stolen or in full view.
No blue, all red wards on the bottom side as the compLexity sets up a bit of a security system. All of their pink wards really have been staying alive as well. Crumbz's pink ward died quite early that he put just behind his red buff, and they haven't been able to get any more into the side of Prolly's jungle either. No countering this game from Dignitas. We see Crumbzz doing that all the time. He's been on his side of the map. That's different.
Yeah, and with Dragon up, it should be another secure for compLexity. Coming back in a game like this when you lost this much vision control is no easy task. It's not like you can just go and make a play. compLexity has 2 teleports that are both completely free on cooldown, so if Dignitas does find something, compLexity can teleport in. It requires a monumental amount of luck and planning for Dig to come back in this one.
Just missed the Dragon, gets a shot on. There we go. Crumbzz taking a bit, offers his cocoon as well for a taste of the same medicine and crowd control. But it looks like compLexity is just winning everything they need to. ZionSpartan is not in a teleport situation. Neither is Westrice. Both can stop each other. Dignitas is going to set up.
Yeah, they kind of want to fight this one, but it is an incredibly dangerous place for them to be.
Oh, he does stop him. He thought he got far enough away. And now who's it going to be? Can ZionSpartan get away? Now it's a 1v1 in the top lane, and the rest of the teams are communicating on who can make the 4v4 happen better.
And now Westrice actually would have to stop ZionSpartan from teleporting in, but a ZionSpartan teleporting in with no dragons to send and half health isn't that impactful.
Well, this
is great poke by Dig,
in the middle.
Considering KeZ is half health just from the dragon, Dignitas is holding this off really, really well.
They still have a rocket. They can put some impact damage down. Prolly is doing a great job, but he's going to be running out of mana soon. Does not have blue buff to get him refreshed. KiWiKiD just on the outside. Repel for vision as RobertxLEE and KeZ are trying to trade out a bit of damage. It's still so back and forth. This tug of war is ridiculous.
Yeah, if Dignitas could turn something here, it could very well get them back in the game. It's actually miraculous that they're able to do this with their 7,000 gold disadvantage.
There's a very indecisive play here from compLexity, but Dignitas is disengaging.
Could have just bursted down the dragon and gotten over there, but they've stuck around to this point that they're low enough on resources that they can't do that anymore, and Dignitas is actually on the offensive. I also don't think Dignitas is strong enough to stay on the dragon, which is why this is such a push and pull.
Cannot be pushed in. ZionSpartan is backing right now, so he's going to be at the fountain if he decides to go anywhere. He's going to mid-turret. No, that's them coming back. All right. I thought there was a ward on that side. Getting me scared. Slowing it down a little bit. It looks like without having ZionSpartan decide to teleport up and the teleport back from Prolly in mid lane, that was not Zion. They're going to be able to get the dragon. Finally, one hell of a dance there from both teams. 6-0. Yeah. Those are coming up on 19 minutes, and that's a pretty big gold lead at about 8,000.
Yeah, once Prolly actually came back.
Yeah.
Aw. Crocodile took his lunch.
Where's that wah-wah?
Yeah. So Prolly, blue buffless, unfortunately. That would have really benefited him in the mid lane matchup against Prolly. Westrice won't take much advantage of that blue buff. But he's still got a 60 CS lead on Zion. KeZ gives it to him. Now KeZ has to show. Westrice, look at what you've done.
compLexity looking absolutely amazing.
So they're in full control.
Underdogs ahoy.
Yeah.
They're definitely climbing their way back up.
This, not to take anything away from compLexity, who have actually played this game really, really well, is a continuing problem for Dignitas. They look amazing one game.
That's true.
And then they just fall apart and look like they're not doing anything the next one. I was going to say from minute one. From minute one, they look good.
Yeah.
From minute 2, when ZionSpartan died and gave up blue buff, it's been all downhill from there.
It's such a calculated first move and then changed over so easily just with the blue buff given back in one gank. Both teams sizing each other up and setting up as well. RobertxLEE is far ahead of KiWiKiD in items right now. Charged up Thirster, a Sheen as well. He's going to be able to take down turrets as well as champions as he goes into these fights. And we said, give RobertxLEE a lead, give compLexity a lead, and they will start to carry the game across all lanes. Putting pressure on the mid lane now, trying to get Dignitas to move to the beat of their drum. And you can see, RobertxLEE a little too close for comfort. But he's going to get those Sheen shots on the turret and prep that for whenever they need to open up the map a little bit more.
It is a little tricky for compLexity to find fights at the moment, as long as Westrice is doing the split push game that he's doing right now. KeZ is very magic resist focused because it's a very magic damage heavy team as long as Imaqtpie is behind on Jinx. So as far as creating turret dives, it's difficult. They just need to keep taking the objectives as they spawn. It's one of those things that the better teams do better, is always knowing what to do next. And it actually feels like compLexity is a little lost as to what to do next right now. They've gotten ward coverage on the red buff, but there's no red buff to take. They've already taken the dragon, but they're not prepping Baron yet. So what are they actually doing right now outside of sitting in mid lane?
You can see Dignitas is almost aware of this. We just saw the cocoons and whatnot trying to hit Bubbadub as they went into this area. Once again, they're trying to get their small catches. And I think compLexity is waiting for that to be a mistake. Maybe they'll find it, maybe they won't. So far, mid-turret goes down, but compLexity, or Dignitas, I should say, is only going to get stronger. The late game is coming up for them. They get bigger and bigger. Haven't seen a command shockwave, really, of Shiphtur change a fight, and we know him to do that.
Don't even think he's used it.
No.
There hasn't been an opportunity to. Kassadin is too slippery generally to land a shockwave on, and the team fights just haven't materialized. Because honestly, if they did, Dignitas wouldn't stand a chance.
Yeah. Definitely have to make a move. 6-0. 10,000 gold in the lead and somehow stalled out at the turrets here. compLexity is kind of trying to find their way in, push Dignitas into something rough. And if they can get to that time, they've been a lot better at forcing necessary Barons that they need to get back in the game and making a fight go their way.
Yeah, normally that would be what Dignitas wants to do, but in this one, they've just dropped the ball too many times, it seems like. The 10,000 gold lead at 22 minutes is nearly insurmountable.
Yeah.
It's really crazy to think that compLexity is winning this handily over the first place team in the North American LCS.
With kind of zero response as well.
Prolly was really happy in the pregame.
He was.
Yep.
Damn.
Knew what was up.
What if they set her 8? They do it.
All right, this is Dignitas actually trying to make a play. They're trying to group up as 5 because compLexity is trying to get the wave shoving, and they know the mid turret is actually a little bit low.
Once they finally get to turrets, KiWiKiD can start doing some work. We'll see that Jinx get to business. Kassadin in the bot lane has teleport to get back, and Westrice and him can't use this to really get Dignitas to spread themselves thin, where you can teleport wherever you want. You can see how they're kind of deciding who to send, where to go. Shiphtur's going to back here, so Dig's just looking to set up some defense. Maybe the wrong time. Good damage could come to this mid turret as we get the rotation here from ZionSpartan.
Shiphtur having a death cap gives Dignitas some signs of life at this point, because if he landed a really good shockwave, it might be enough to turn a fight while compLexity is turret diving. But outside of that, it feels like compLexity's really just built up an appropriate lead. And now they're getting some very good pink ward vision control in the jungle. And then if they sweep around the Baron pit, they could have a huge line of safety and actually just force a Baron.
Full Triforce to a static Shiv, KiWiKiD. Trying to help the wave clear as they're getting pushed back here as well.
Good move by Dig to get this ward control back. So Dignitas still fighting a little bit. They just made so many very crucial mistakes in the early game against a strong early game team that it snowballed to this point. Not even the first gank, but then the second gank that Crumbzz tried to do bottom that kept getting turned by Kez, and the really bad decision by KiWiKiD to flash into a turret with Morgana ult on him.
Very spread on a few sides here. Prolly is pushing Shiphtur out to the left side. The rest of the team's trying to get back to Shiphtur now. That was one reel of Prolly spells onto Shiphtur, calling the rest of the team over for assistance. Good movement by compLexity, kind of dancing this one out, but will they be in the right spot at the end of this fight? The turret goes down, and now they need to focus the champions. KiWiKiD is so far into this one, he just walks into the middle of the fray. Westrice comes in huge. We have not seen the top laner come in. The double kill for RobertxLEE, and the double kill for Kez as well.
Dignitas got absolutely obliterated, and that's honestly what happens when you're 12,000 gold down 22 minutes, and that's when you decide to fight. KiWiKiD tried to get one reset on the support Morgana, and then there's 4 full damage dealers that come through from the rest of compLexity. Taking another look at this fight, yes, it was a good start on the Bubbadub. They were desperate for an initiation, but they're just not strong enough at this point. Westrice is so strong, KiWiKiD is dead, the shockwave hits 2 full health people while there's no follow-up, and compLexity just gets to wreck the rest of Dignitas as they completely see fit. And now they got Baron. Oh, Bubbadub died. That's cute. Did he die at the end of that fight?
Guess so. Man.
You know what? No. KiWiKiD hit him with a Super Mega Death Rocket.
Oh, as Baron.
From the base.
Good shot.
We'll have to take a look at that. The unfortunate shot of death.
We got about... Oh.
Here we go.
Boom! That's a nice guide. Everybody else was able to back.
Yep. He blocked it for the team.
There you go. I saw him put his hand up.
Doesn't do much for him, though, unfortunately. Aside from giving a nice 1 in the kill box.
Hey, guys, we got Baron, except for Bubbadub. So Prolly now hitting an item threshold on his Zanyas as well. A little bit more of a playmaker. compLexity playing an amazing game. Referenced earlier, the last time they played Dig, they only had 3 kills. Shiphtur was, he got his pentakill that game. There's no pentakills from Shiphtur this game.
The stark contrast from that game to this one has got to be quite concerning for Dignitas.
Prolly still pulling down the pressure of 2 and almost 3 now.
Yeah.
Braum and Prolly, or Shiphtur rather, are going to head back towards mid. Prolly doesn't even have to move. 262 in his lane. 229 now as he starts to soak up the bottom, and compLexity moving into the mid. They're going to have to spread themselves very thin on the side of Dig if they want to stop this push. They're doing everything they can to Westrice.
And Westrice is a pretty farmed dude. 300 CS at 27 minutes. Like, we talked about him struggling in 1v1s. This was not the case. He got a lot of early help from Kez, but then he absolutely held his advantage extremely well against a very skilled laner in ZionSpartan. So this has definitely been Westrice's best game of the year.
Definitely going to show to the other teams you cannot give compLexity strong lanes out of champion select and then even an inch, because they will take a whole mile or even more. I think we've got a marathon getting run here by compLexity at 10-1 with a 16,000 gold lead now. Good lord. Very dominant game from a team that a lot of people have almost written off being at the bottom of the list. So many changes in a league make it very hard to even kind of compose a team, even if you want to.
Yeah.
But they've really come through a lot.
And Dignitas is really showing themselves as the biggest wild card.
Yeah.
In the LCS.
It's a weird thought.
Yeah, the fact that this means they've now lost to Curse and compLexity, 2 of the 3 teams currently tied for last. A little bit weird. Then they had that incredibly one-sided game against Cloud9 where they won, and then an incredibly one-sided game against Cloud9 where they lost. compLexity is the same, honestly, because the first game for Dignitas was just a cakewalk for them.
Right. Already on to the outer turrets. compLexity really using the gold lead well now. I mean, at a certain point, there's no other decisions to make but to take what you can take because you have so much gold. But they're putting their foot down. They're not wasting any time either. Not giving Dig any. Shoot it!
Robert's gonna get it! Ha! Kept that gold for himself. Got that local gold for the AD carry.
Turret.
Funneling the farm.
Man. compLexity feeling very, very good right now.
Say that again.
Very close to being worn off. They're going to keep themselves pushing. ZionSpartan soaking up the bottom lane, but just really for a last push to hopefully not be the final one for compLexity. We're actually pretty still low on some of the levels here, so some of the timers not as high as they could be. Level 16 Prolly, however, to a level 14 Shiphtur. So you're getting some big-time ult damage out of one that you aren't in the other.
The level advantage is also extreme in this one.
Yeah.
And it's such a turnaround for compLexity as well. Like, we've been talking a lot about how Dignitas did great against TSM yesterday, and they're making the mistakes against compLexity. But honestly, compLexity against EG yesterday just straight up lost the 2v2 with RobertxLEE and Bubbadub, and it was before Kez could make an impact in the game. This one, they were actually winning the straight up 2v2 in the bottom lane. So RobertxLEE and Bubbadub had a substantially better performance in this one. And it goes to show you that compLexity is actually a very strong strategic team. They have good ward control, well-laid plans, and if they pick strong lanes, can compete with absolutely anyone in the LCS. Right.
It's very, like you said, a stark difference to the win or loss. Yesterday's game when they did lose, they only had 1 kill. But when they win, they will make 1 death. Yeah. Exactly. Just the complete opposite. Almost the same time on Dragon Baron. We have the objectives up here that may be used if they can get out of their base, but it's really just they need to hold their breath here and hope compLexity makes a big mistake. Because if you look at it, they can feel as if they can just walk right through the front door and not even be scared.
Yeah, I wonder if compLexity, because they've lost so much this year, is going to stall this out and maybe wait for the next Baron. Because they don't need to do this inhibitor right now, knowing the cushion of a gold lead they have right now. But I've seen stranger things.
Have you?
I've seen a lot of strange things. I saw a woman slap another woman in a park the other day. That was strange. They're fighting over dogs.
Damn.
Strangest thing? She was my hairdresser.
There you go.
Yep.
I hope you don't get slapped.
Never thought I'd say that on stream.
18 grand on the clock. We're going to see if compLexity can slap Dig one last time here at the inhibitor turret. I don't know if it's going to happen. Back and forth. The tug of war begins once again between these two teams. compLexity giving Dig respect underneath their home base. But Prolly, he's down on the bottom, trying to wreak a little bit of havoc and draw some attention.
Yeah, so the Baron will be up in 26 seconds, and it does appear like they're not going to try and crack that shell. It is pretty low, so if they could sneak up on it, but the fact that Prolly backed on a pink ward without killing it means that they can't get aggressive. He could just teleport back in if he really wants to hurry, but I think they're just going to be pulling back for Baron.
Steady and slow wins the race. Let's see what they can get out of this compLexity side. Hopefully they don't trip up anywhere along the way. The gold lead will definitely give them a bit of room to even make mistakes here. And they should be able to even lose somebody early in the fight if they get caught out and turn it around. Oh, one more. Got it. Nice kill. Uh-oh. Oh, there's a hit.
There it is.
Very nice ultimate in the Agony's Embrace from Kaz onto KiWiKiD. He keeps hitting. The Randuin's goes off. They are just sticking to Dignitas like glue here. 1, 2, 3 goes down. It's going to be ZionSpartan running from the rest of the team. Kaz is getting the hits on. He's going to be able to break out, but compLexity is going to be able to break down the base.
That looks like the game Dignitas just thought about contesting Baron, and compLexity jumped on and figuring they've drawn this out long enough. It's time to win.
What amazing coordination from compLexity, knowing that they lost buffs in the early game. KiWiKiD making a turnaround in that and completely carried in a domino effect. compLexity at 33 minutes is going to single-handedly, or I just say, take down Dignitas 14-1 in a 14,000 gold lead.
What a shocking result, especially when you consider the scoreline of this one. compLexity, a team that was 2-9 coming into this against a Dignitas team who was 8-3 and looking at the top of their game. And then this happens.
And I want to say single-handed at the end there for the lanes. Each lane came out so strong by themselves for compLexity, and then when they did need to be a team, everything worked out even better. That's exactly what a League of Legends game should look like when you go from start to finish with the upper hand.
Yeah, maybe the emotional high yesterday for Dignitas, knowing that their rival coach Locodoco had to get a bowl cut was just too much to not focus on this compLexity game. It definitely seemed like compLexity was well prepared and playing mechanically well. For whatever reason, the missed flashes from Crumbzz, the overstaying in lane early from ZionSpartan, and then the decisive team fighting from compLexity down the stretch was just a total mismatch of the teams we expected to show up for this game.
Right.
It's like they swapped jerseys.
Yeah, I consider 8-3, now 8-4 against the 2-9 last place team is now 3-9.
Yeah.
What an amazing result for that game to happen, especially for the early invade that Dignitas was, they wanted to do something different, try to innovate. And KiWiKiD being the new jungler on the team, you know, that's not something that compLexity has practiced as a team. They said, we need to react and adapt right now, and they did the perfect move.
Yeah, KiWiKiD with that Evelyn pick, 4-0-9, which is participating in all but one of compLexity's kills. Early picking the Kassadin by Prolly and not getting punished for it.
Wow, that blind pick Cass.
Yeah, pretty impressive. Prolly has always seemed to have Shiphtur's number. I mean, we think back to the promotion tournament where Shiphtur was on Coast. Prolly was kind of demolishing Shiphtur in CS numbers, at least, in that event. And it was one of the big reasons compLexity was able to qualify and actually beat Coast. And he kind of continues to hold that mental edge over Shiphtur for whatever reason.
Really great game coming.